Coming up on today's San Francisco 49ers report, with Niners OTAs in the books and minicamp coming up next week, we're going to take a look at a new list of Niners cut candidates, players who may have struggled during OTAs, who could be on the chopping block for San Francisco during 53-man roster cut down day. Cut candidate number one is cornerback Ambry Thomas. He's going into the final year of his contract. He continues to be a bad practice player, and on the game field, he has been so inconsistent, up and down, and at this point, can this coaching staff count on him? I have my doubts about the coaching staff's trust in Ambry Thomas because it has waned throughout his career. The former third-round pick has shown glimpses of playing well, and then he really struggles. Sometimes he's not in the coach's doghouse. Sometimes he is. So all of these are reasons why Ambry Thomas could get cut. He's just a bad practice player. And Kyle Shanahan wants to see, can you translate quality practice play onto the game field? If you do that, that will allow us to trust you in real life, real game situations. And I think that's part of the reason why Ambry Thomas in 2021 down the stretch performed well. But then in 2022, he couldn't see the field and he was injured. To start last year, he was a backup once again. Then coming out of the bye, he played well on the outside. Then he was awful in the playoffs and then benched outright in the Super Bowl. San Francisco also loaded up at cornerback in NFL free agency. And I think that this is the deepest cornerback room that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have had since they took over this organization in 2017. If the Niners were to cut Ambry Thomas post-June 1, it's only $210,000 in dead money, $1.2 million in savings. And it's not to say he can't go somewhere else to get another opportunity. Maybe a change of scenery could really help him. But going back to point number 4 there on your screen, how the Niners have really stacked up this position in free agency, the starters right now, Charvarius Ward, Deommodore Lenoir on the outside, and it's either probably going to be Renardo Green or Isaac Yiadom in the slot. I'm confident in both of those players. But you brought in Yiadom, you brought in Chase Lucas, you signed Rock Ya-Sin, and then you also have some other good depth pieces where you can afford to let Ambry Thomas go, who might have a difficult time making this team because the Niners are so deep at the cornerback position. As far as depth goes, San Francisco has one of the more talented wide receiver groups in the NFL, and they just signed this week Jauan Jennings to a contract extension, 2 years, $15+ million up to, and then $10.5 million in guaranteed money. And because of that, some of these wide receivers could be on the outside looking in. At the very least, they're on the roster bubble. And that could include Ronnie Bell, who last year in the preseason as a rookie really impressed me. That went a long way in him making this Niners 53-man roster. But San Francisco in the draft drafted Ricky Pearsall, drafted Jacob Cowing, and then they signed Jauan Jennings to a contract extension. They're hoping to do the same with Brandon Ayuk. And the extension of Jauan Jennings might point to some changes being made in personnel. You can't find that legitimate backup tight end. Is Kyle Shanahan going to trot out more 4 wide receiver sets? Even with that potentially being the case, where does Ronnie Bell fit in? Now, to his credit, he was really good in the preseason as a rookie. I like his toughness after the catch, ability to break tackles. I've said he could be the future Jauan Jennings. But now, Jauan Jennings is under contract through 2025. The other reason why Bell could get let go, and he'd be snatched up by another team in a hurry who's in need of a wide receiver, he could add some value to his arsenal with special teams. But he struggled in the category of punt returning. And if he plays slot wide receiver, I think that's Pearsall's slot and Jauan Jennings' slot. I don't know if Ronnie Bell is a perimeter wide receiver, but he does have some Jauan Jennings to his game. But this room is now muddied up. It's clouded, and it's deep. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Jauan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley, Trent Taylor, Tariq Owens, Tay Martin, Danny Gray. There are going to be multiple wide receivers who I don't think end up making this 53-man roster because, like cornerback, San Francisco has really fortified the depth at that position. Be sure to subscribe to us here on the San Francisco 49ers Report for daily and year-round Niners content. We try to be as informative, insightful, entertaining, thought-provoking as possible, but involve you, the viewer, you, the fan, and that's a big reason why we're north of 133,000 subscribers. It might be the off-season, but you never stop repping the Niners, and if you want to do that and rep this show, the real ones who watch the watch parties know every time the Niners score a touchdown, San Francisco. That's why we made these shirts. If you want yours, get it today. Chatsports.com/SF. Link is hanging out down in the show notes, or you can just plug in that link right down below. Once again, chatsports.com/SF. Niners cut candidate after OTAs number 3 is running back Elijah Mitchell. And we discussed Elijah Mitchell being on the roster bubble a couple of times. He just has not been available enough. And like cornerback, like wide receiver, we can also include this in the conversation about the running back position. I think the Niners' moves, as far as their personnel moves, they're telling. And they tell a story. San Francisco drafted Isaac Guerendo and traded up to take him. They signed Cody Schrader, who led the SEC in rushing yards last year with Mizzou as an undrafted free agent. Could Jordan Mason get a bigger role with the Niners? And if you add Guerendo, Schrader, Mason to your running back room, and you already have Christian McCaffrey, that's 4 running backs right there. Will you have 5 on the 53-man roster when you need to maybe use that roster position or roster slot for another position of greater importance? Elijah Mitchell has been productive. That is true. What's also true, he's just been injured too much. And there's a consistent pattern here. And you know the saying, you can't make the club from the tub. In 2021, rookie year, he was awesome. Really fun to watch. 11 games, 10 starts. In 2022, 5 games, 1 start. He got injured in the season opener, the Mud Fest against the Chicago Bears. And then in 2023, 11 games, 1 start. And I talk about the Niners' moves telling a story. They also traded for Christian McCaffrey as part of that. I think that is a look into their feelings about Elijah Mitchell. Who will be the Niners' second leading rusher this year? We know that Christian McCaffrey, if he stays healthy, is going to be that dude, but who's right behind him? Now we go back to the defensive side of the football, and once again, to the cornerback position, a player who we haven't really been able to talk enough about as far as his in-game production, because it's unfortunate. I really liked him as a player coming out of college. That's Samuel Womack. Why Womack could get cut, these are a lot of the same reasons as Ambry Thomas. Isaac Yiadom and Rock Ya-Sin were added in free agency, and they are veterans who can play. And so far in OTAs, they have played well, and Samuel Womack has kind of been hidden on the depth chart a little bit. So too have the other players on this list. There are just players who are catapulting themselves ahead of Ambry Thomas and Ronnie Bell, Elijah Mitchell potentially, and Samuel Womack. And that's why these players could end up being on the outside looking in, and that's the reality of having a team that's a Super Bowl contender. It's hard to make that ball club. And again, it's not to say that Thomas, Bell, Mitchell, Womack can't land elsewhere, because I do think they have a role on an NFL roster, but a lot of NFL rosters, not as stacked as San Francisco's. And then we round out with cut candidate number 5, and that is Trent Taylor, who was added to this team in NFL free agency. And for Trent Taylor, he's exclusively a punt returner. Ricky Pearsall was drafted in the first round. He can be a punt returner and a wide receiver. So at a deep position group, do you keep a wide receiver at a deep position if he can't even contribute at the wide receiver spot? And you think about it from the coach's standpoint, right? 53-man roster cutdown day. You are trying to figure out how you can best put together the best team possible. And you might have to make a cut at one position in order to keep players at a different position. And that's why this is the list of Niners cut candidates on today's San Francisco 49ers Report. We do all types of content here on the show. When breaking news happens, we pass that along. We give you in-depth and thought-provoking analysis. We also really love interacting with everybody, and our consistency, that's also there. That's why you hit that sub button for daily and year-round coverage of the Niners, from live shows to regular videos like this to watch parties. We do it all. Make sure you give me a follow on X and Instagram, by the way, at Chase_Senior, if you further want to interact with me and you want to see some of the short-form content that I put out there.